For a conversation like this don't matter. In fact, all the best panels I've ever been involved in organizing had no one there practically. And as I said, I think even before these events really started, they were already a success. That being said, how do we engage more people to be here and if nothing else, bear witness to all of this? And when I think about that, my students, our research interns will know. They know that I think that guilt is totally underestimated or undervalued in our culture. We can use it. But speaking very much for myself, I've been doing this work for about 3 years, and people always say, "Oh, you're doing this. Well, you must have seen, that film Brothers or this, or so many things." And I say, "No, I haven't. I should. Let me write that down," and then I don't. And part of that is that I felt the need to punch out at the end of the day in a way that people, like in military families, when Jessica talks about you brushing your teeth and you're thinking, where is he? Nobody gets to punch out in that way. And I know in psychology, Jessica could tell us more about this probably, but there's a theory of terror management, that you just instinctively avoid things that smack of death or terror. For myself, I have come to see that there's this time when I've convinced myself that I'm already in the maze. I'm using the metaphor of a maze a lot in the way I'm thinking. I'm already in the maze or the web, that some sticky strands have already reached out and grabbed me, and I need to stay in it until, in my case, until I write myself out of it. Until I listen to narratives as other people narrate themselves. Maybe not, I don't know if you ever get to totally come back home or out of the maze. But this idea of convincing people, you know what? As April said so eloquently, we're all already in this in some way. It's already affecting your life. And to use guilt, or I think with this, in the students' case, almost every one of you, I'm looking at Julio and Stephanie, because they started working with us, not particularly interested in this issue. And I wasn't even particularly interested in the issue when we started working on it. It was sort of like someone asked us to do some work on it. And gradually, getting really interested. So maybe aside from guilt, we can kind of seduce people into the maze with us to bear witness. I think what Concrete Couch is doing is great because it distracts from the terror management through the seduction of expression. So just asking that. Yeah, Jessica?
I wonder if it's not like, there's this literature that says that what it takes to counter homophobia is one relationship with a person who identifies as gay or bisexual or transgender. I was at a talk by Reza Islam, who said something very similar about Islamophobia, which is that it takes one relationship with one person who's Muslim. And I wonder if the same isn't true about veterans issues or military issues. Knowing the heart of someone who you identify as other, and then you have to really you have to back up and say, wait a minute. At their core, they're really just like me. We have the same fears, we all believe that whole thing. Maybe that's what it takes. And, Reza Islam, when he was talking last week about Islamophobia, he said he's done with education and, information campaigns. And he says it's not enough to just teach people about the other. That you need to build a relationship with the other. And that has all kinds of benefits. Just in terms of expanding your network, but also helping you realize that at the end of the day, we're a lot more similar than we are different. Oh, goodness. The other thing I'll say, and then I'll give it back to you because I know you wanted to talk. There's terror in that too, though. Because as long as someone's other, you're safely not them. You're safely different from and protected from all the dangers and fears that come with being them. And part of me, I think, connecting with Jason was really asking these hard questions about, do I have a shadow too? Is there part of me that yearns to destroy life? Because I'd always kind of identified myself or kind of invested in my identity as someone who was very peaceful and welcoming and loving, and that I was much more about the life instinct than the death instinct. And so if you really are willing to sort of sit in a relationship with a warrior, you're forced to ask yourself, is there part of you that might like war a little bit too? And if that's true, then what? And then what? Yeah.
I just want to add a little thing here for just that issue of anger at the other. There's also the issue of just motivating people through being generally pissed off versus getting them to do something constructive. If you're going to go oppose a war, you're mad at the banks and the economy the way it is, it's real easy to get out there and say, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. But whenever you try to get into constructive projects for, say, deciding which kind of benefits are appropriate for veterans or deciding how to avoid the problem of civilian foreclosures, then people go, oh, that's a lot of work, and then they tend not to go to those things. And so that's why I think things like Concrete Couch are really important, because it brings the element of fun into doing something constructive, because otherwise the things people are going to get involved in are the things where they can say, I'm really pissed off, but get people to try to do something constructive, and unless it's fun, they're going to kind of stay home and watch TV.
Hi, I'm Linda, and I'm an anthropologist for the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs. I have to say a couple of things on several things that people said. Sarah, first, the maze and the web being drawn in, and you wonder how that happens, and then once you're in, you have to stay in. And also, Jessica speaking about the other. I worked recently, well, over the past three and a half to 4 years, I've been working with student veterans and their issues with a tri-cultural transition. As they come home, they transition home. As they come back to college, they transition to college. And I am myself, and I had to remember this, I am an Army brat. My father was an enlisted man who served in Vietnam. My mother was a WAC. She met my father in Landstuhl, Germany, where I was born. I had forgotten all of that because I went off to college, and you know what happens when you go to college. I was raised a Goldwater Republican and forgot all of that. And so my father passed away in 2006 of complications from cancer that was directly connected to exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam. And as he passed away, I started this project. I started working with students, interviewing students, collecting and looking for themes in the interviews that I had. And I think what's so important here is that we do, one, identify veterans as people. I mean, we're people. We're not lawyers, we're not scholars, we're not researchers, we're not teachers. We're first human beings, we're people. And so I found in my research how difficult it was for me to determine who was the vet and who was not the vet. And then once I did, how difficult their transition was. And I had some very surprising results in the research that I did. And I don't consider myself a researcher, I'm a teacher. I told Sarah and Jean this a couple of weeks ago. But I do feel that my role as a human, as a person in this community, is to lend my ear and whatever I can contribute to the healing that needs to take place, the transition, the enculturate, the re-enculturation, whatever you want to call it, to these individuals. And I on a personal level, I don't like the term warrior. I feel like that is one of the things that separates us. And I do know that many of these individuals, male and female veterans, identify with that term. But to me, personally, I feel like that puts up a wall. I'm a warrior and you're not a warrior. Well, I'm here devoting time, devoting effort to this. What do we want to call that, you know? So, anyway, a lot of what all of you said, and I know some of you from other arenas, and really, really spoke to how I feel about being drawn into this and what my role is.